Now listen, I know right off the bat that Minnesota is never going to trade Stefon Diggs to the Green Bay Packers. I know that. There is no logic or rationale behind why they would do that. But you gotta admit it'd be pretty damn funny. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to the episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom Grossi, and 3 out of 3 vids on receivers that people have been asking me about. The last one, which is more of just a fun one, and that is Stefon Diggs. Now, we did a video earlier this week on Kirk Cousins and his inability to throw footballs, but Stefon Diggs, I mentioned him in there, but Adam Thielen was the very vocal one after Sunday's loss against the Bears, basically saying, like, you got to be able to throw the ball, you got to be able to hit the deep pass, you got to be able to do all those things, in which Kirk Cousins sheepishly apologized on Tuesday, and he was like, Adam, I'm sorry, man. It's just, like, no one told me that throwing footballs was going to be this way. So that's Kirk Cousins for you. But the other person who is suffering at the wide receiver core of the Vikings is Stefon Diggs. Now, Stefon Diggs, a.k.a. the guy who freaking massacres the Packers secondary every single time that he plays us, it has been very vocal. There was rumors about him being very, very frustrated, in which a report, we went and asked, The Athletic asked Stefon Diggs and was like, hey, so, like, any truth to the rumors? Do you want to be traded? He's like, there's truth to all rumors. I'm frustrated. I'm trying to deal with it, but I'm pissed off. And the team has responded and flat out said, he's not available for trade unless you give us something really, really good. Now, they have said the same thing in the past about a little guy named Percy Harvin, and then they traded him to Seattle. So I don't necessarily believe the Vikings, because if someone's like, hey, we'll give you like a first-round pick, maybe they go for it. But, I mean, from a Vikings, like, perspective, you have to imagine that, like, Stefon Diggs, he gets awarded this massive 5-year, $72 million contract last year. And, like, they don't want to throw the ball. They just don't. Especially this season, their identity has been completely revolving around Dalvin Cook. And rightfully so. He's a great player. He's a great player. It looks like that they want to do this defense/ground and pound with Dalvin Cook. But when that didn't work on Sunday, they had to leave it to Kirk Cousins, in which you have 2 very highly paid and talented receivers on either side of you, and you can't hit either of them. So I understand why Stefon Diggs is pissed off. Now, let's just imagine that Minnesota, right now, is in a scenario where they'd be willing to trade Stefon Diggs. Because, to be honest, their cap space ain't looking good. It's hurting. They barely got any cap left. And so, Stefon Diggs, starting next year, is going to start making $10 million a year. So first of all, they're going to need to find a team if they're trading him to eat that contract, which is going to hurt. But whoever they trade him to, they basically have him locked up for $10 million a year. Don't know if you want to pay that. But you're also going to have to, for the Vikings, you're going to have to re-sign Dalvin Cook. It might have to be next year, because that'll be his contract year. And hell, if I was behind that offensive line and I literally was the focal point of that offense, I would be like, yeah, pay me or I'm not showing up. You know, the Le'Veon Bell way. Now, he is an unrestricted free agent in 2024, so he's pretty much locked up in Minnesota for a while. They're never going to release him. That'd be a $21 million hit this year in dead money, and they already might face that with Kirk Cousins. So when he finally gets released, he'll be 30 years old. So we're not talking about this down the road. So let's just say the Vikings are just like, hey, you know, the Packers, we always take their players. This is for Brett Favre. Here you go. Here's a nice NFC North discount, which, again, they would never do. It makes no sense for the Packers to do that. We're already paying a receiver over $10 million a year. His name is Davante Adams. And as I've said now in all of these receiver videos, every receiver then gets pushed down and they don't have the time to develop. So that makes absolutely no sense. And I'm like kind of on the fence of even if they would trade him, because the trade deadline is October 29th. And the next 4 opponents for the Vikings: Giants, they should kill them. Eagles will be a close game, they could lose. Lions could be a close game, they would lose. Redskins, they're gonna kill them. So they might go 2-2 in October, or maybe they'll go 3-1, or hell, maybe they'll go 4-0. But I feel like after October, things are gonna calm down a little bit. Adam Thielen and Stefon Diggs will probably have a great game against the Giants. They'll have a pretty good game against the Eagles secondary. And then like they can go ham on the Lions and the Redskins. So I feel like Kirk Cousins is going to attempt to throw a football in the direction of Adam Thielen and Stefon Diggs over this next month, because they're playing teams who do not have great secondaries. So with that being said, I think that they'll be doing well enough that it'll kind of quiet the dissent. Where I could see them potentially dealing out Diggs is because their cap space is so low, and that the situation's getting a little dire. And on top of that, if Kirk Cousins is not their guy, which he's not, and the question arises, what do you do with him? Do you keep those receivers, or do you just dedicate more to that offensive line and running the ball? I mean, I don't know what you do if you're the Vikings. I really don't. And again, Kirk Cousins might get better. He probably won't. But, you know, it's going to be very interesting to see how their season goes, but more importantly, what they do in the offseason with Kirk Cousins. And they have 2 wide receivers that they are paying a crap ton of money to. And so they will not let him go to the Packers. It wouldn't even make sense for the Packers to get him, even if we wanted him. Talented guy, but way too much money. As I said before, Emmanuel Sanders makes the most sense just because he's going to be cheap, but I'm on the train of we don't need any one of them. So I think there is potential that Stefon Diggs does get traded, regardless of what the team says, because of the cap space, but they should be doing well enough in the month of October that the trade deadline will probably come and go before they're able to deal him. And again, a team's also going to be picking up a pretty hefty contract, but who knows? Maybe someone like the 49ers or the Giants or something would take him. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. Vikings fans, do you think Stefon Diggs is going to get traded? Is this all blown out of proportion? That both your wide receivers hate your quarterback? Let me know what you think down in the comments below. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all social media. See down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to Patreon members over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. Boom! 3 videos, 3 receivers, all on a Friday. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.